So Harley Davidson stock price takes a little bit of a nosedive in the last couple of days, and this is all to do with some unscrupulous actions that have been going on in Japan, with Harley Davidson in Japan. Now, you may have heard about this, and this is quite an old story in many ways, and that Harley Davidson were putting pressure on the dealerships in Japan to say, no, you've got to have all these motorcycles. You must have all these motorcycles. In fact, increase their inventory to basically just falsify, or skew the sales figures that Harley Davidson are the motor company they're pushing out to the dealerships. And we know this kind of happened. This has been one of the issues with Harley Davidson in particular with their dealerships in the United States. They've been pushing on product, on motorcycles, until a lot of the dealerships are saying, whoa, we just cannot do this. We just cannot do this. Culturally, in Japan, there's a slightly different way of looking at this, and they would say, yes, whatever you have, we have to meet that. We have to meet this quota. We will do whatever we can to meet this quota. The problem is that the way they were putting pressure on the dealerships and the way the dealerships were responding has kind of had a negative impact on general sales over there, or true sales, because what was happening is that the dealerships were kind of coercing or even themselves, the principals or even the workers there, they were coercing them to buying the motorcycles so that they're getting these new sales figures. But then they were selling them secondhand out the door. And it was just to keep the sales figures going, and then they could keep their franchise going. And apparently, Harley Davidson corporate were threatening them, were saying, no, if you don't have these sales, if you don't take all these motorcycles and keep those sales quotas going up, then we're going to remove you as a dealership, or your franchise as a dealership. So there's lots of shenanigans going on, let's say, and unscrupulous ethics going on, I would say. But I mean, it's really hard to say what would be the right thing and the wrong thing in that kind of working environment. However, the Japanese government, they've kind of totally agreed with what I'm saying here. In fact, I'm taking the lead from what they've just imposed. So it's the Japan's Fair Trade Commission also issued a cease and desist order, finding that the company pressurized 38 major dealers with aggressive sales targets since at least early 2023. As I say, this is quite an old story. I was made aware of this back in 2023, and I think I might have made a video on this as well. The company reportedly suggested it would not renew contracts for dealers who failed to meet the goals. This pressure forced some dealers to purchase and register new motorcycles themselves, only to sell them in the second-hand market to make their numbers. I mean, it's just ridiculous, right? What this means is that the Japan Fair Trade Commission, they fined Harley Davidson 211 million yen, which, I have no idea what that is, right? But it equates to 1.4 million US dollars, right? Now, you would imagine, that's peanuts, that's nothing, right? I think actually this is less about the fine and more about the impact and the bad PR in terms of how it affects, or how it sheds light on the motor company and the relationship with dealerships, which has always been, in my opinion, it's always been a bit strained. And sometimes, especially for the smaller dealerships, we know a lot of them have had to close, and they've just gone out of business, or they said, right, enough's enough, we're just closing our doors now, because of this strained relationship. And it just hasn't been working very well for a long, long time. But I think what it also does, it's bad PR for the company. Harley Davidson in a bit of flux right now. Obviously, they've got the new CEO coming in, and there's going to be lots of changes. They put 2 new board members on there the other day as well. So there is change, and we are expecting change, a lot more change and a lot more announcements in the next couple of months, let's say. But this is now reflected into the stock price. Now, it actually fell down to 28.32 yesterday, I believe. Today, it's kind of recovered a little bit, 28.74 as of the making of this video. But it's taken I think it's about 4.8% close drop. Now, the problem here is, do you have a lot of faith in the share price? because the share prices will fluctuate and they'll respond really quite aggressively to any kind of bad PR or good PR, right? Any good news that either artificially inflates that stock price, or it seriously affects the stock price as well. So in overall terms about the stock price, I'm not so interested in that in many ways, because I think it's always going to fluctuate. It's always going to go up and down. I think we're seeing it at a pretty low ebb in terms of stock price for Harley Davidson. Certainly the highs that you saw a year ago, 2 years ago. They've had a bit of a bad run, but I think this just adds fuel to the fire, or certainly adds more bad press to Harley Davidson in terms of corporate, and saying, well, actually, if you're doing that in Japan, then you must be doing this to other countries as well. You must be doing it to the dealerships within your own countries. And we've already seen evidence. We've heard this so many times before. Dealerships in the United States, especially, have been sort of complaining about this and saying, well, you know, we're taking all this stock here and we're not able to push this product. We're not able to sell these bikes in the numbers that you want us to sell. We just can't do it because of economics and, you know, product prices and all that kind of stuff. They're selling, of course they're selling. They're always going to sell bikes, Harley Davidson, but certainly not the numbers. This has always been my point of view. It's not that they're not making sales. It's just that they're not making the sales in the numbers that they would want, or had they made in the past as well. So very interesting here. So it would be interesting to see now if there's any other countries that come out with similar kinds of stories, and what the new CEO is what cultural change we're going to see within Harley Davidson, within that relationship with the dealerships. Is there going to be a cultural change in terms of how you go into a dealership and what experience you have? You know, what is going to be the relationship in the future for smaller dealerships, and will we see a re-emergence of smaller dealerships starting up again? It'll be very interesting to see. I believe that Harley Davidson need to change their model, not only in what dealerships they have, but also the relationship with the dealerships, how they work with them, but also possibly just releasing those dealerships to be more flexible in what other products that they can sell as well. So I'd be very interested to see how this new CEO, which direction he takes the company, and how he believes, and along with the board members, how he believes that the right pathway will be. But say again, bad PR for the company. Didn't really need to happen, but obviously it has. And Japan have hit them with a $1.4 million fine. That's insignificant for me in terms of, yeah, look, 1.4 million is 1.4 million, right? I'm just talking about in the global scheme of things in terms of what affects a company like that. But I think it's the bad PR. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, what you think. But Harley Davidson, yeah, bad relationship with their dealers, and it's a continuing trend, isn't it? Catch you again. Bye now.